Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Thank you for returning for another video. The 2024 NFL season is now fully underway. Teams are showing us who they are and what they're going to be in this NFL year. So let's dive back into our tier list and see who is on top of NFL Mountain. Let's go. Let's recap how we break down the tier list and do NFL Mountain here on Johnny Gaz Sports. Of course, at the top of the mountain, we currently have the Kansas City Chiefs, who have now started out at 3-0. They found ways to win games in any way, shape, or form. Coming off of the Monday night victory here against the Atlanta Falcons, they really had to hang on there. Patrick Mahomes just continues to find ways to win, even with a backup running back, so on and so forth. And until somebody knocks him off, they are currently at the top of my NFL Mountain. We did add a few teams down at the very bottom, but let's work our way down. Underneath the Kansas City Chiefs, we have the contender category, the true Super Bowl contenders. Then we have the in-the-hunt teams, true playoff teams that just need a few more things to maybe jump into that contender status or category. Then in the middle, we have the not sure who you are, kind of waffling in between there. Then we have those barely hanging on teams that if they don't make a move now, things could get ugly. Then, of course, we have our forget about it category, which we did add a couple teams here to the bottom of NFL Mountain, one being the Tennessee Titans. Unfortunately, things just keep getting worse for that offense and Will Levis. He was sacked 8 times this last week here, and that's just not good. You're not gonna be able to move things forward here if you can't protect your quarterback. You can't form an offense. So unfortunately, they were now added to our forget about it category. Then we also added the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also came off of a tough Monday night loss, and they've now lost 8 straight games with Trevor Lawrence as their starting quarterback, and that's kind of hard to believe considering where he started his career. But things just continue to get worse and worse, and they just cannot find answers. So for right now, they are at the bottom of NFL Mountain. We will go through it alphabetically as always and see where each team ranks on my NFL Mountain. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals, who of course played just recently my Detroit Lions, and it's kind of one of those things where they've just been inconsistent. They come off an amazing victory against the Rams where they score 41 points. The offense, everything seems to be clicking. Kyler Murray looks everything but like the quarterback he was his rookie season and early on in his career. But then they just completely fall off against the Lions, who, to their credit, look like they have a better defense now, but they really fell off. Kyler Murray really gave them nothing outside of that first drive. So you're kind of wondering who this Cardinal team is. For that reason, I'm going to put them in the middle in the not sure who you are category. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons, who come off that loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And, you know, Kirk Cousins looked better in that game, but unfortunately, I think there's still limitations there. And when they can't get the run game going, things really start to get tough on that offense. So they're going to have to find other ways to get things going or get that run game going. For that reason, I have them, again, kind of waffling in the middle. Another loss, and things are going to get tough for them. They have a big game coming up against New Orleans here next week, and we'll really see who they are. For right now, I'm going to put them in the not sure who you are category. The Baltimore Ravens. This is a really tough one for me. I think they might have saved their season with a win over Dallas, but again, they played well for 3 quarters, and that's sort of been a theme for them as they've had bad fourth quarters that in some cases have led to losses. This one, they were able to hang on, and they really look good in spurts there against Dallas, but it's so tough for me. I think Lamar Jackson and a Harbaugh-led team, you got to feel like, you know, they're always in the hunt. And for that reason, I'm going to leave them there for now. But they were very much in between that not sure who you are category. They still have a lot of questions as we move forward through this NFL season. And the Buffalo Bills, who really took advantage of the team we added to the bottom of our NFL Mountain, the Jacksonville Jaguars, here this past week. And they looked very, very good. It's like some magical things are happening there in Buffalo. Damar Hamlin has his first interception, and Keon Coleman catches his first touchdown. So a lot of things came together there, and they're just looking better and better. I think Josh Allen is showing that he could be, again, an MVP candidate and is really looking good. For that reason, I think the Buffalo Bills are true Super Bowl contenders. I really believe you even could make an argument that they could sneak their way in to climb to the top of that mountain, but obviously there's some things will have to happen before we make that change. For right now, the Buffalo Bills look like true contenders. And then on the other side of things, we can go to the Chicago Bears. And, you always have to look at Caleb Williams, and he hasn't been terrible. I think he's just victim of a tough offensive line and just a lot of moving pieces. I've talked so much about how so many things have changed in Chicago, and that's just hard just to come together and gel up front. So they're going to have They're going to need time, I think, to see what this truly is. But right now, things don't look very good. They're having a real tough time protecting Caleb Williams. And until they get some things figured out, I think they're going to have to see, what they can do. They're in a tough division now. Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit all look like they could be killers. And that may be tough for Chicago. So for me, they are barely hanging on. The Cincinnati Bengals, what a tough one. Again, they suffer another loss. They are 0-3. And, we don't have to repeat, teams that do or do not make the playoffs, and nobody has won a Super Bowl starting off 0-3. So it's a really tough spot, but any team with Joe Burrow, I think, has somewhat of a fighting chance. And they've been close, but the defense just hasn't given them enough, and you can't kick field goals and expect to win games. So I think that's kind of where they stand, and if they get another loss, I think things are really, really in trouble. So to me, they are barely hanging on. The Cleveland Browns, and I initially had them in a different place, but the more I thought about this and dissected what happened to them this past week against the Giants, I just think, there's not much to look forward to. Deshaun Watson looks bad in this system. They don't have a lot of answers offensively. They're more and more hurt up front. Things just aren't happening. I think, again, another team that had 8 sacks against what I think is a bad Giants team. So there's not a lot of hope there. And unfortunately, I'm going to put them in the forget about it category. The Dallas Cowboys, another team that's hard to figure out. They seem to have all the talent in the world to do this, and they played tough and had a flurry at the end of the game there against the Ravens, but it's not enough. They're just too slow starting. They need to get off. They need to have better starts to these football games if they're going to have any chance. Another loss, and they're in a really tough spot. So for me, I'm just not sure who Dallas is right now, so they'll go somewhere in the middle on NFL Mountain. The Detroit Lions, who may have slipped a bit last week, I think rounded back into form week 3 with a victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense really taking shape. They held Kyler Murray in check, and for a few weeks in a row now has really been the reason why the Lions have been able to get to 2-1. I think they do still have questions offensively. Jared Goff still looking to pick it up, and Ben Johnson and that offense searching for more points this season. But I still believe that they will be a top contender in the NFC. They have their bye week coming up. They have some injuries stacking up, so they do have question marks as they move forward, but I do believe that they are true contenders. And what a surprise for the Green Bay Packers. They've been able to tailor the offense to Malik Willis and his skills and got his best performance against his former team in the Tennessee Titans there in week 3. What a great coaching job done by Matt LaFleur there, and they're really dangerous now as they get even closer to Jordan Love returning to that lineup. And this will be truly significant in their season if they can stack one more win on this, and get to the point where they can even push Jordan Love's return. What a job they've all done there. So to me, they're not only in the hunt, I think they're true contenders now. I would have told you this with Jordan Love before that Brazil game. Of course, everything happened there. They get the loss, and he goes out in that second to last play, whatever it was. But they've really hung in there, and I think they're very dangerous when Jordan Love is set to return. Next up is the Houston Texans, who I think were humbled a little bit going to Minnesota, suffering that tough loss there. But they were without their running game pretty much and were kind of behind it. And Minnesota has proven to be really strong, especially defensively. So it's not a bad loss. It just was, I think, kind of tough for them. And for a couple weeks in a row now, that offense really hasn't been humming. So they're going to have to get some things together there in Houston. But I think they do have all the pieces to bring everything. For now, I'm going to put them in the hunt category. The Indianapolis Colts, who I think, again, are just so many questions. And Anthony Richardson is such a wild card. I think he's a boom or bust type of guy. And there's been more bust, unfortunately. But they were able to get the win over a struggling Bears team. And that's where I think all my questions lie, is what are they really? And I think, now at 1-2 and their only victory over this Bears team, it worries me what they have coming up. And unless you really start to see things turn around with Anthony Richardson, I think this is one of those teams that is barely hanging on. The Las Vegas Raiders, another team that I waffle with putting in the forget about it category. They didn't do much to prove anything as far as this week, losing to the Panthers and a well-earned win there for Carolina. But I just think things are not coming together there in Las Vegas. There's just so much up and down. They're a little bit hurt defensively. They rely a lot on the strength of Max Crosby, and when he doesn't have the production, they sort of fall off in general. But I think there are some pieces there that could allow them to hang on. They have some winnable games coming up, and we'll kind of see over the next couple of weeks if they can move themselves up the NFL mountain. But for right now, I have the Raiders barely hanging on. The Chargers were quietly moving up and up and up the NFL mountain, and I think they may have been derailed a little bit this week with that loss and with the injury to Justin Herbert, which I think now the news is that it ended up being about as good as you could ask for. So unless some things change and he misses an extended period of time, they might be able to hang in there. They also have the early bye week, so we'll have to kind of see. I'm going to give them some time to see how this all shakes out. They have a lot of injuries stacking up, and again, the pieces are there. They were starting to show they had the makings of a culture change. So we'll allow them more time. I'm not sure at this point exactly who the Chargers will be this season with these injuries. So I sort of have them in the middle of NFL Mountain. Now the other Los Angeles team, the Rams, who got a big win over San Francisco, and they just seem to be piecing things together week to week, and you can never count Sean McVay and Matt Stafford out. But can they get enough defensively? And that's really the thing. They climbed out of the depths last season, so they can do it this year. So I'm not going to take them out of it, certainly, but I just don't know if they'll have enough moving forward. They still have tough matchups, and can they get enough out of it? So to me, they're still barely hanging on. Next up is the Miami Dolphins, and we all know the unfortunate happenings with Tua. So they've really pieced together the quarterback position. I think it's Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson that they're using there, and Mike McDaniel will have to piece something together to make this work. They have winnable games coming up, so they're still in the mix, I think, if they can piece together some wins. But until then, they're another team that I have barely hanging on. So I don't think they can be ignored anymore. The Minnesota Vikings at 3-0 and a big win over the Houston Texans. Brian Flores in that defense is just, again, showing that they're, one of the best in the NFL. And they are getting everything out of that offense that I think that they could get. Sam Darnold has really, been more than I think they could have expected. And now you can't ignore the Vikings. And I think there's a little bit of an injury concern with Sam Darnold. We'll have to keep our ear to the ground on that one. But coming off of this last week's performance, I don't want to say that they're certainly Super Bowl contenders. I think we're going to have to see this for another several weeks and really see if they can sustain this within the division once those games start up. But for now, they are certainly in the hunt. All the positivity that they built up in that win over Cincinnati in week 1, I think, is sort of disintegrated. The New England Patriots, another team that I toyed with putting in the forget about it category, but I think I'm going to give them at least one more week. They have some winnable games coming up on their schedule, the 49ers and Dolphins. So we'll give them that time to really see if they can make something out of this 2024 season. But for now, I have the New England Patriots barely hanging on. A couple amazing weeks for the New Orleans Saints. I don't want to say was truly hurt by the dud that they just had this past week, but I think once they lost their center, Eric McCoy, things just really went south for the New Orleans Saints. So we'll have to see over the next stretch of games. I think they're going to be on the road a little bit if they were truly the team they showed in the first 2 weeks, or if they are the team that they were in week 3. For now, I'm going to leave them in the hunt. I think if they showed a lot offensively in what was a down offensive couple weeks there in the NFL. So I think if they're that team, they're certainly in the hunt. I'll leave them there for now, but they certainly have some questions to answer over the next several weeks. And for the New York Jets, offensively, things are starting to come together. Aaron Rodgers looked very good in that Thursday night performance, and I think defensively things are starting to round into shape. They still have questions on that side of the ball. And over the next several weeks, we'll really start to see who they truly are and can they hang in there on the offensive line, things like that. But with Aaron Rodgers at the helm and everybody healthy, things starting to click, I think the New York Jets are in the hunt. The Philadelphia Eagles were another tough one for me because I think, at times in spurts they look really, really good on both sides of the ball. And then other times they leave questions. And I think Jalen Hurts still has some questionable turnover issues. I think Nick Sirianni's decision-making still is open-ended there. So I think they have the capability of being a Super Bowl contender, but I also think they have the capability of dropping off this list altogether. For that reason, I'll leave them in the hunt for this week's tier list. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's been all about the defense, but Justin Fields and the offense is starting to pull things together. Now, they were aided, I think, by some injuries and some bad tackling there in the game against the Titans, but they keep winning. I mean, you can't deny that, and they have a favorable schedule coming up. So for me, the Steelers continue to look better and better and better and move their way up my NFL mountain. For that reason, I have them in the hunt. The San Francisco 49ers, another tough team to judge here because they are so injured offensively. I think the questions are defensively. They've given up leads, and again, it's tough to say who this team is. I think when fully healthy, they truly are Super Bowl contenders. I think people know that. But they're going to have to kind of bide the time at 1-2. They can't afford to stack on more losses. They should start to get a few pieces back here and there. But is that going to be enough? For this reason, I'm going to take them out of the true Super Bowl contender category, but they certainly are in the hunt. We'll see what this team is as we move forward here the next few weeks. And the string of tough teams to figure out continues. Another one, the Seattle Seahawks, who are at 3-0 and can't be ignored, but you have to see who they played, which let's go to week 3 where they played the Dolphins and the slew of quarterbacks that they've had going on there. So who are the Seattle Seahawks? They now have to go to Detroit on Monday Night Football and play the Lions, and that will be a really tough test for them. So we'll see who they are. They're starting to stack up some injuries as well. So I think things come kind of down back to reality for Seattle this week. For that reason, and to give them some more time, I'm going to put them in the not sure who you are category. And that's tough. You know what? I'm going to move them around. You know what? I'm going to make a quick change. I'm going to say they're in the hunt. Let's give them another week, and who knows? If they come out and surprise Detroit, then we can look at them a lot differently. For that reason, I'll leave them in between, and we'll call Seattle in the hunt this week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are riding high in the victory against Detroit week 2, kind of now riding the low of that defeat against the Denver Broncos in week 3. So, again, you're kind of left wondering who and what this team is. They have a lot of injuries up front on the defensive line, even in the secondary. And then, again, having to rely on Baker Mayfield to make all the plays in the world, you're going to ride that wave. So, to me, I'm not sure exactly who the Tampa Bay Bucs are. And lastly, things start to be turning around there for the Washington Commanders, who were kind of low on my ranking system early on, now starting to climb their way up. And Jaden Daniels showing that he can be an efficient quarterback on top of the athletic plays that he can make. And they are now at 2-1 and cannot be ignored. So to me, I think now Washington Commanders are in the hunt this NFL season. We'll have to give them a few more weeks and really see if this can hang on. Is he truly the Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate we see here in these first couple of weeks, or does that start to fall off? Either way, you got to be excited there as Washington Commanders fans. That's going to do it for this week's tier list for week 4. Where did your team fall? Did I get them where you expected? Let me know down in the comments. I love interacting with you guys. Thank you so much for your time. Make sure to hit that like button if you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gas Sports. I'd love it if you consider subscribing to the channel. We're now over 2,000 subscribers thanks to you guys. That notify bell is the best way to make sure you don't miss any future videos. Thank you guys so much. I hope everybody has a fantastic week, and go Lions.